I'm building a wide platform to surround the inner frame that I made in the first episode. This will be the foundation for all the decorative elements that will make up the tabernacle style. The inner frame will sit in a rabbet on the outer frame, so I need to make the opening slightly smaller than the perimeter of the inner frame. The outer frame is symmetrical, but the sides are narrower than the top and bottom pieces. First I rip the 3-inch stiles for the sides, and then I rip the wider boards for the top and bottom rails. These pieces will be joined by half-lap joints for greater strength and resistance to twisting. I'll mark the boards where I plan to remove material. Where I expect a shoulder cut to be, I'll pre-score with a knife cut. Now I need to set the dado blade in my table saw for exactly 1/2 the thickness of the boards. There's the little waist at the end of my parts that I can use to test the blade height. The goal is to end up with a fit that creates a near level joint after the glue up. First I'll cut the 3-inch wide cheeks in the top and bottom pieces. And then I'll make the cuts in the vertical pieces to coincide with the wider top and bottom rails. So in this case, 5 inches on one end and 7 inches on the other. The dado blade comes with a fairly high risk of kickback, so I'm using a heavy miter gauge and resetting the hold down for each pass. The main thing to get right is that the measurement between the shoulder cuts is perfectly matched for opposing sides and precise for the desired opening. I'll plane off some of the marks left by the saw blade. Glue up is easy. There's no great rush. I clamp the assembly face down to my flat workbench in hopes that any misalignments will shift to the back side of the frame. After allowing the glue to cure overnight, I go looking for any problems that I can plane even. The outer perimeter is off by about 1 millimeter, but this is not a problem for my plan, and I'll just square these edges true again. The dimensions of the inner window are right on target because I was careful about the shoulder-to-shoulder measurements. And I planed the back fairly flat because my router base is going to reference this when I cut the rabbet. I'm using a rabbeting bit with a bearing that's intended to give me a 3/8 inch wide cut. I'll start with shallow passes and gradually lower the bit until I reach the desired depth. Before I go too far, I'll set a gauge line for the amount of lip that I want to leave intact. The small router was feeling a little unstable, so I pulled my larger one out of the router table with the insert still attached. After testing for fit, I'm still a bit shy of the width I need, so I decide to expand the rabbet with chisels while I'm squaring the corners. All this chiseling was good practice, although in retrospect, it would have been much easier just to make more passes with a smaller bearing on the router bit. I cleaned up my chisel work with a shoulder plane, even though this rabbet will be hidden in the end. Eventually the fit was good, with a little wiggle room. I used playing cards to center the inner frame. When everything looked good, I locked it down with clips. I'll probably want to take this inner frame out during the finishing process. So I'm happy so far. The structure of the frame is done, and next I'll start experimenting with the placement of the decorative elements. Thanks for watching.